there could be a crisp spring day, Annabel would gladly welcome it. England had such blustery winters, and her village is no exception to such perpetual discomfort. She would not hesitate to gather wood in winter, even though her shoes were torn and her cloak in shreds. This was not so unusual in her village. As quaint as it was, there was an element of extreme poverty in contrast to the Casstleton Palace. Annabel would find herself daydreaming when the winter cold seeped into her family's humble cottage. One day she would be queen, dancing through her garden where flowers forever bloomed in an array of colors. A soft blue sky would gently touch the earth, and the morning dew a delight of wonders to the eye. The sounds of bow bells chimed throughout the village as the children assembled in their chairs. The schoolhouse was quite a donation, which was celebrated throughout the village. Annabel could not seem to look in the eyes of anyone, even her teacher. Every day, the more fortunate students would mock and scoff at her with a contemptible spirit. Annabel faced them with meekness of heart, knowing that school was most important to her. Tears would come and go, but she always knew this was her journey and she had to live it. Annabel's teacher, Helen, was privileged from birth and raised by a very prominent family. She became the governess for the queen's daughter, as she was quite a bright young lady. Helen displayed a very poised, dignified, and proper manner. She always insisted that each student greet each other with kindness, a lesson to be learned of great value. Helen would share fond stories of her time in Casstleton Palace. Her favorite memory is one of Georgie the Corgi. Toys would abound for the royal pet, even having a miniature Casstleton Palace just for Georgie to sleep in. There was not a moment of boredom for Helen, quite the opposite. Her life was infused with excitement, challenges, and great rewards, satisfying to her soul. The crowds gathered to see the queen on her royal balcony. Cheers echoed with shouts of "Long live the Queen!" It was high tea, and the queen cherished the delicacies brought before her. She was reminded by her daughter that Georgie's day to be groomed at Royal Pa's Palace was on her calendar. The queen called for her chauffeur to take Georgie to his appointment. Wilfred, agreeing to his call of duty, needed to find Georgie within the walls of Casstleton Palace. This was no easy feat, as Georgie had racehorse instincts and would dodge any chance of being found snatched in arms of confinement. Wilfred knew Georgie loved his biscuits, and so temptation would overcome Georgie's ability to dash about. As the royal pup hopped in the back seat, Wilfred gave guidance to behave the way a royal dog should. Wilfred was reminded that he was to drop off a package to a close relative of the queen's. As he opened the door, Georgie did the unthinkable. He ran for his life. Wilfred, aghast in grief, thought the queen will be so disappointed when I return with no Georgie. Wilfred searched and searched for the queen's royal pet, but to no avail. Georgie must have grown wings to fly. When the queen heard of Georgie's escape, she sent out messengers throughout the land, proclaiming a reward be given for the return of Georgie. Days and days went by, and the queen's son and daughter were by no means giving up hope. We must search in every village throughout England until Georgie is found. Annabel sat by the fire, stirring her family's pottage, while gazing out the window with melting snow. Her sigh told a story of dreams locked in a treasure chest filled with life, laughter, and warmth. If it can only be, but to be grateful was more important than to dream. A startling noise was at the front door. It was not uncommon for animals to sniff their way to the cottage, but this was different. Annabel slowly stood up and walked quietly to the door. Curiosity was more compelling than the sound of grating wood. As she looked out her window, Annabel could not believe her eyes. Could it be a precious gift of lovable joy? Georgie found his way to Annabel's lap, cold but happy to be cuddled by a willing heart. Annabel's family knew this prize breed would not be owned by a commoner. They did not have a heart to tell Annabel, so days went by until the inevitable would be known. The Queen's messenger entered their village and came upon their door. The knock was bold and harsh, so it seemed, not a neighbor or friendly visitor. "Please come in," Annabel's father insisted, but the messenger inferred that he was rather in a hurry, for the Queen had ordered no delays. Annabel's father quickly inquired, "What is the occasion for this visit, sir?" "The Queen's royal pet is lost, and there is a plentiful reward for his return." Annabel knew the time had come to relinquish even the thought of keeping her newfound friend. As the messenger stood with a commanding presence in his voice, he became a bit hesitant as he watched Annabel's eyes tear up. "I will let the Queen know we have found Georgie, and we will be in correspondence." Annabel, in her trustworthy character, displayed a grateful sigh of relief, cherishing every last moment with Georgie. Helen, Annabel's teacher, heard of Georgie's adventurous spirit, leading to their family home. Helen knew she would always be welcomed in the palace, and knew this would be no exception. The Queen and her daughter were delighted to see Helen. Tea was the given hospitality, poured in the finest china. With all their chatting, Helen broke her silence about Georgie. "Oh, Queen, I have such grand news. Georgie has been found. But please come with me to the home of this precious family." The Queen agreed and called Wilfred to take them all to Annabel's village. As they arrived, the village suddenly came alive. "The Queen is here! Come greet the Queen!" Many were wondering, who could she be visiting? Who did she come to honor? Helen knocked on Annabel's door. Annabel promptly answered it, but in great astonishment, it was the Queen and her daughter, with gifts wrapped in tendrils of dazzling ribbon. "These are for you and your family for keeping Georgie safe and warm. On behalf of Casstleton Palace, we would like to send out our royal seamstress to adorn your family in the finest vesture and garments. Georgie has found a new home, and he will stay in your cottage if it so pleases you. And of course, it would not be just and fair unless we build you a home for your family that is worthy of your family's name. You are welcomed in our palace, and of course, we would love to see Georgie from time to time. We will provide all the necessities for Georgie and your family to live a healthy and prosperous life. We could not think of a better reward for a family that deserves it most. And tell your classmates the Queen will not tolerate mocking in the classroom, or I will pay a visit when they least expect it." There could only be laughter in the room, as dreams do come true, even bigger ones than one can imagine. From this day forward, the queen could not forget her promise to Annabel's family. She had her staff schedule each detailed appointment to complete the task ahead. The queen's son Arthur loved Georgie and missed him terribly. He inquired of his mother to see Georgie at Annabel's family's home. Time had passed, and their newly built abode was perfectly suited for Georgie and his new family. The sky was nothing short of brilliant blue, painted in white cotton clouds floating in the air. The carriage was ready for the queen and her son. Helen was an invited guest whenever the queen ventured from the palace. Arthur sat fidgeting about while the carriage moved along. The queen and Helen knew that Arthur was excited and anxious to see his little Georgie. Even though Arthur was no longer such a young lad, he had a boyish demeanor that everyone loved, and so did Georgie. Helen was the first to step out of the queen's carriage with the protocol of Wilfred's hand. The queen was given time to proceed, as she was always dressed in the finest royal vestures. Arthur leaped from his seat, landing on one foot then another. Helen thought, what a graceful lad. But the queen thought otherwise. Time will cure a lad's rambunctious spirit, easing him into behaving as a noble gentleman should. As they approached the door, Helen was about to knock when Arthur took the lead. He was not much for reluctance or conduct, at least not yet. Annabel's mother came pattering with her shoes to the door and a flowered apron that spoke of her fondness for baking. Freshly baked bread gave rise to the most enticing aroma that could call many from miles away. Helen made sure that Annabel's mother knew exactly why they had come. What a delightful visit they had, devoting much time to how Annabel's family was adapting to their new home. Arthur grew a bit impatient as he sat waiting for Georgie to appear. Mother, where is Georgie? I want to play with Georgie. In a matter of moments, Annabel came out of her room with Georgie by her side. She had finished grooming him for the day's outing. Arthur had no idea Annabel would strike his fancy, as his whole intent was to see Georgie. He was so startled to see that Annabel seemed more intriguing to him than his little Georgie. He had to get a grip before he was found out and made a display of himself. Annabel asked Arthur if he would like to play outside with Georgie as she had planned. He, of course, was elated, not just because of Georgie, but his own baffled emotions. Georgie was the star of the show, a celebrity in his own right. Annabel and Arthur took every opportunity to see that Georgie did not stop fetching and running until he could do so no longer. Arthur could not have been more entertained by his daily dose of Georgie and Annabel's gregarious spirit, something he would dream of and ponder in the more quiet moments of his day. He knew that Annabel would be a friend forever in his heart, just like Georgie. Or would she ever be more? The guards were scheduled to change as the Queen's clock chimed on the hour. He wished that Annabel could be right there with him. She would love the ceremonial custom at the palace. Arthur had grown up to be a handsome and less awkward behaved lad. He was ready to take on a bride, a challenge that could bring him future heirs for the throne. Many arrangements had been made for Arthur to meet lovely young ladies in royal breed. It made Arthur feel so contrite and almost apologetic. Why did his heart not once go out to any of these befitting women? He would sit while they conversed in aristocratic fashion, but his mind would wander to the days when he and Annabel played with Georgie. Reminiscing in amusement, Arthur found himself laughing at the most inappropriate times. His ear was not engaged in listening to the ladies of ancestral royal blood, as admirable and graceful as they were. His blundering was mistaken for disapproval, and some carried their tears away in white-laced hankies. The queen was not going to end her lineage by her son's indecisiveness. She knew there had to be someone to melt his heart with authentic love and devotion. It was time for a new approach to resolve a young man's fancy. The queen was going to put on a spectacular demonstration of the guard's musical talents and marching finesse. All the royal family will attend, including Arthur's personal invite. The queen was beside herself in excitement, since she wondered who her son will choose for her royal event. Possibly one of her arrangements could end up being her daughter-in-law. How exquisite for befitting society. She handed everything over to her appropriate staff, who will take care of the meal planning and ceremony. It is a marvelous day. The time had come for history to be made and the future promise of an heir to the throne. Carriages pulled up with stately horses. One by one, royalty stepped foot to engage in the festivities. Flowing gowns and fitted tails lined the halls, waiting for the master of ceremony to speak. Arthur was given this commission by the queen to announce his guest of honor, an enchanting young lady who would awe the royal palace with her charm and poise. Not one guest knew Arthur's intentions or admirations, not even the queen herself. The guards rolled out an exhilarating instrumental piece to define the queen's acclaimed venue. The sound echoed throughout the halls where gilded chairs hosted the most notable. As the music softened to a quiet whisper, Arthur made his announcement. His guest of honor made her way to the podium. Her hair glistened in the sun, reflecting light as in a mirror. Her tresses were magnificent, her poise and grace like that of a gazelle. Her gown, the beauty of a mastered artistry. But who was she? Which lady captured this royal son's heart? Let me introduce to you my future bride, the wife I will love and cherish forever. This is Annabelle of Townland Village. She is as lovely as a sunset sky and more pure than fine gold. Annabelle is rarer than jewels, as her heart is filled with treasures I long to honor. Annabelle blushed with virtuous humility. She only dreamed to be a princess in those dreary days when the school children mocked her. It was then she would put on her imaginary gown to dance in her palace. Her world had been far away from her dreams, but now her dreams have become a reality. Georgie came bolting out through the open doors, breaking protocol for the evening. His dramatic entrance broke all formality while the Queen's royal guests emerged into billowy laughter. Georgie's theatrics brought an encore of acclamation and applause. His prowess was astounding as he made his way to Annabelle. She was delighted to reach down and pick up her bundle of joy. Georgie was going to have a home he always dreamed of, to be united with his two best friends. Love found a way to bring Annabelle and Arthur together. Georgie seemed to know his destiny right from the beginning. The church bells rang once again with the sweetness of chimes. It was the wedding day of the future king and queen, to bring a lasting legacy not only in Townland Village, but in the history books of Casstleton Palace. Royalty was given a new face that no longer entertained the nobility, but welcomed all commoners to festivities arranged by the king and queen. Corgie Day was declared as a special day to honor the uniting of Annabel and Arthur in matrimony. Each year, a family in Townland Village would be given a corgi. Baskets of food are brought each week to Annabel's village, and provisions are met for each family. Casstleton Palace was transformed into a food repository and necessities for the poor. No villager remained hungry and were given warm clothing for the harsh winters. Annabel's dream did come true, but it was so much grander, more priceless, and immeasurable for many generations to come. A dancing princess will become a dancing queen one day, but her heart will always be in Townland Village. Never doubt that dreams really do come true. They can go far above and beyond what you can ever imagine.